So we use I because I stands for immunoglobulin, and that's representing the red blood cell. Now, we just learned that you will only inherit two possible alleles for a genotype. So to figure out the 6 different possible genotypes, all you have to do is make 2 allele combinations of these 3 letters. That's it. So let's look at what the possible genotypes can be. You can be homozygous for type A, which means I capital A, I capital A. You can also be heterozygous for type A, which means that you have the dominant IA and the recessive lowercase I. Second different genotype is IB, so homozygous for type B, and you can also be heterozygous for type B. You can be heterozygous but have 2 different dominant alleles, and you can be homozygous recessive, having 2 of the same alleles. So everybody in this room has one of these 6 different possible genotypes. And based upon what you inherited from your mom or dad, you have one of 4 blood types. So this chart breaks down blood typing into the type of blood you have, which is your phenotype, the genotypes that represent that blood type, the antigen, which we'll talk about as, I'll use it in a reference as a sprinkle, okay? But what it really is a protein, like a marker protein. Also antibodies, who they can donate to and who they can receive from. So I want you to think of blood typing as, and these red blood cells as donuts, okay? A person who has type A blood would be equivalent to a person who can only eat donuts that have red sprinkles on them. And so you know that you have red sprinkles on them, and if you do, that means that the alleles that you inherit, at least one of them has to have the allele with the IA in it. So the 2 possible genotypes that will give you type A blood are going to be I capital A, I capital A. Or you could be heterozygous for type A. A person who is type A blood is going to produce the antibodies for type B blood. And so they actually have antibodies for type B, anti-B. This means that if you are a person that can only eat donuts with red sprinkles on them, if somebody gives you a donut with blue sprinkles, you will have an allergic reaction to it. And so what you do is you destroy any donut that has the blue or the B sprinkles on them. Okay, that's what that means. So then when we look at type B blood, that means that you are a person who has a donut or a red blood cells that only has the blue sprinkles on them. So your genotypes would be homozygous for type B and heterozygous for type B. Okay, so that means that your antibodies you would produce would be anti-A, and this would be equivalent to you having an allergic reaction and or destroying any red blood cell or donut that had red sprinkles on them. You hate them or you're allergic to them, so you want to destroy them. Now, a person who has AB blood, their genotype is going to be heterozygous. So they have the IA and the IB. That means that the sprinkles they have on the outside are both red and blue. So if you had any antibodies, you would have an autoimmune disease, and you would attack and destroy your own red blood cells. So a person who is type AB blood actually has no antibodies against any of the blood types because they would kill themselves. Now, if you are type O blood, you are a plain old Krispy Kreme donut without any sprinkles on them. So that means your genotype is II, lowercase I. You have no sprinkles, so you have no A or B antigens on the outside of you, and therefore your body will reject any blood that has the A or B antigen. So you actually produce both antibodies. And this would be equivalent to somebody, if you like the plain old Krispy Kreme donut, this would be equivalent to you having an allergic reaction if somebody brought you any combination donut with red or blue or both sprinkles. Now, keeping that in mind, let's talk about who you can donate to. If you are type A blood, you can only donate to somebody who can receive your antigen. And so if we look at who produces anti-A antibodies, that would be a person with type B blood and a person with type O blood. So the only person a type A individual can donate to is another type A or an AB person. A person who is type B blood can only can only donate to another person that can receive that antigen, which would be a type B or AB person. Now, an individual who is AB blood type, since they produce both antigens or have both sprinkles on them, they can only donate to another person who can receive both antigens. And the only blood type that can receive both is a person who is AB. But if you look, a person with O blood has no antigens, no sprinkles on them, and so therefore there's no other blood type that will refuse them, so they can donate to every single person regardless of their blood type. A type A type B, a type AB, or a type O person. So the other side of donating is receiving. A person with type A blood can only receive blood from another individual who either has the A antigen only or who has no antigens. So they can receive from a person that's type A or type O. A person who's type B blood can only receive from a type B or type O individual. A person who is AB can actually receive from everyone because they have both antigens, no antibodies, does not matter the blood type, they are safely able to receive a transfusion from them. However, a person with type O blood, since they produce both anti-A and anti-B antibodies, the only individual they can receive from is another person with type O blood. So when you look at this breakdown, a person with AB blood is referred to as a universal recipient because they can receive blood from every individual. And a person who is type O blood is known as a universal donor. They can give blood to everybody. So I am type O blood. I get a call from Red Cross at least every 6 weeks because they want my blood because I can help almost everybody. My husband is type AB blood, and he has to seek out the Red Cross and is often refused to be allowed to donate blood because his blood can only help a certain subsection of the population, whereas my blood could be helpful for everybody. So just an example of universal donor and recipient. So if I get in a car crash, I'm in a pretty difficult position with my blood only accepting another type O, but he could literally get whatever blood is in the blood bank. So let's do some problems. Practice. Cross a heterozygous type A female with a type O blood. Now, the reason it specifies heterozygous type A is because there's two possible genotypes. So by telling you it's heterozygous, they are capital IA, lowercase I. And there's only one genotype for type O blood, so lowercase I, lowercase I. Now it's still a monohybrid cross, but when you set up this Punnett square, you need to keep the I and the A over one box and the little recessive allele over the other one. And then you put the other parents down the side. Just like all monohybrid crosses and all dominant allele problems, you must be able to put the dominant allele first. So in this first box, it's going to be IA, or heterozygous I. Second box, it's going to be homozygous recessive. The third box down here, heterozygous A. And the fourth box, homozygous recessive. So when I figure out my genotypic ratios, I'm heterozygous A, 50%, and homozygous recessive, 50%. What are the possible blood types? Well, when I say blood types, all I want to know is if you have this genotype, what's your blood? Type A. And this one, type O. So the possible blood types this couple can have, they can have babies with type A blood or type O blood. Second problem. A husband and a wife both have type B blood. Their first child has type B and their second has type O. You need to figure out the parent cross, genotypic ratio, and if they can have a child with type A blood. So here's how I solve this problem. I know that both parents have type B blood. So I'm going to put that allele on the first box on each the top and the side for the Punnett square, because I know that fact. And I can cross that box, right? So that the first child who's type B, this could be their genotype. Okay? They have a second child that's type O. And I know that child can only have one possible genotype, which is homozygous recessive. So I go ahead and I put that in the Punnett square where it belongs. And then I have to trace both of those recessive alleles back to each of the parents. So that means that the first parent has to be heterozygous for type B, and so does the second parent. It's the only possible way that they can have children with both type B and type O blood. Now you're not done with the Punnett square. You can't leave it blank like that, so you have to fill out the rest. And so in this top right box would be heterozygous B, and the bottom left box would also be heterozygous B. So when it asks me what my parent cross is, I'm going to have heterozygous B times heterozygous B. And when it asks me my genotypic ratio, I look at my first box. I'm homozygous dominant, 25%, heterozygous, 50%, and homozygous recessive, 25%. So could they ever have a child with type A blood? No, because every single box in here is either going to give me type B blood for these first three boxes or type O blood for the last. So check yourself. Which pattern of inheritance results in a blended phenotype? Which two patterns of inheritance does blood type follow? And can parents who are homozygous A and AB ever have a child with type O blood?